workflow for the county services. Plus, technology is focused on municipality government, and the county currently has a relationship with Tyler for our financial systems. And so for these reasons, as well as the multiple selection that Tyler Munis offers, the group felt that the best decision would be Tyler Technologies for their Munis product. And so tonight, I'd like to answer any questions that you have, and hopefully we can decide if we can move forward with Tyler or what direction you would like to take.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Thank you, sir. So Kim, the Tyler products, the phase 1 and phase 2 for their implementation is 9 months and 12 months. Those are not concurrent, right? Those are not concurrent. I think they have the first 3 months where they're working on the financials, and then they start the personnel one. Okay. So does the contract, are you considering, which way are you deciding to go, the outright purchase or the SaaS?
Well, that's a good question. And what I've asked them today, I asked them if we can get a price both ways so the county can look at it. Now, if we were to decide to purchase the software, then of course we have to purchase the hardware and keep it in-house. So that's an option. And until we really get the cost on paper to know how much it is for leasing, purchasing, and then purchase the hardware, it's kind of hard to say, which option looks to be the best at this point.
Right. So, I mean, the scanning documents and all that really takes up a lot of space. So are we prepared to house that kind of storage here in this building?
Well, we do today. I mean, we do house a lot of scanned documents today. And space is cheap these days.
Is this all on Microsoft server based?
Yes, all their databases were SQL databases.
And would Tyler offer an on-site project manager to manage this for us? Or is that something we should look outside if that's the direction we want to go?
In Tyler's proposal, it says that the county is responsible to manage the change and provide consistent coaching and assurance to embrace and accept the change of the New World software. So they'll manage their side of it, but they can't manage Kent County resources per se, but they can manage their side and their expectations.
Right. So do you think this would be a good candidate for bringing in a temporary consultant from, I don't even know if Diamond Technologies exist anymore, but a company like that for a period of time just to manage this project?
Well, I did, I talked to Newcastle County and asked them how they made their project successful. And they felt that one of the ways they were really successful in moving the project along quickly was they had a project manager, and he felt it was really important to also have a change management. A project manager is going to manage the project and the task and all, and what's on time and what's next. But the change management would be someone who works with the users and helps them understand, this is what you do today, but this is how you're going to do it in this software. And also overall, what are the interfaces in and out of the department and data? What are the reports that are needed? And so the change manager would help with that. And he got his resources off a state contract.
So he had one of each, a project manager and a change manager.
That's correct.
Change management is really important, not only to manage the timelines and along with the project manager, but there's plenty of employees here that, if you find any that are reluctant to change, that person would also kind of coach them along too. So I'd agree with that.
Mr. Petermas and then Mr.
Thank
Hall.
you, Commissioner Angel. Kim, my understanding in reviewing the Tyler proposal was that they did an extensive amount of work in change management as part of their service through the installation management process. So I think the Tyler proposal included change management as part of their overall implementation, working with staff, and basically the migration from these legacy systems into new IT culture, if you will, is part of their service. Now, I'm not sure in the case of Newcastle County why they felt they had to get an additional, like a third party to do that, but I do note that there was a considerable amount of their submitted proposal included the description of their services and change management. Thank you.
Commissioner Hall?
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. So the cost for the annual cost, so it's 9 months for financial implementation, followed by 12 months for HR payroll. Those timelines are to have their staff on board here to integrate our systems into the ERP. Is that correct?
Yes, that was their timeline to install their financials as well as data conversion from our old system, legacy systems, into their systems.
Okay. And then beyond that, the 167.5, is that tech support, as things change or we find bugs or other systems change, so we need interfaces or reconfiguration, that's what we're paying for there, or is it just paying for the privilege of licensing their product?
It is licensing of their product. It is free software upgrades. Well, it's free. It's in your maintenance contract. It's your licensing as well.
And then once they hand the keys over, do you envision needing additional staff to manage oversight, manage the contract, the licensing, sort of the care and feeding in the out years?
Normally, once the project is in production, all the staff members know their job and they're using the system. I do not foresee that we would incur much other cost as long as, all the testing's been done and the users accept the system. The only cost I would expect is the maintenance fees.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Kim, you mentioned hardware. That'd be extra.
If,
Do we have a cost of what the extra would be for all these also? I mean, I know
no. Typically what we would do is we would determine which one we want to go with, and then they would give us a list of their hardware requirements, and then we would price that out. So what I'd like to do is, moving forward, if we can decide which vendor and the product, I can come back with more of a formal quote for possibly their cloud service, their hosting service, and also the equipment it would cost to purchase. If you purchase the software, then you have to have the hardware on staff in-house. If you use their cloud solution, you don't need to buy the hardware and you don't have maintenance and replacement costs. So they're the things we need to look at as to what those costs would be and do some comparison.
what would your preference be? Have the hardware and pay a maintenance fee for repair, or?
Well, until we have the numbers, it's kind of hard to tell. I don't know how the county feels about having their data in the cloud versus in-house.
You mentioned Newcastle. What about Sussex? I know they use Tyler Munis, so I think they're pretty happy with it.
They are pretty happy with it. They use Munis, Sussex County, Newcastle County, City of Dover, the River Bay Authority, all use Tyler Technologies Munis product.
On my trip to Washington, D.C. last month, I was able to talk to Tyler people at the conference, and what I saw there was very nice. Very, very futuristic, let's put it that way, compared to what we have now.
Correct.
Mr. Hall.
Just one more quick question. It's probably a given that if we buy the hardware ourselves, we should expect down the road that they may drive us to have to maintain hardware upgrades to support their software upgrades. Is that a fair statement?
Actually, the software upgrades is included in your maintenance, your annual maintenance cost.
The software,
Yes, I'm sorry.
yes, but they may say, okay, for our next iteration, we need you to acquire, you know.
Yeah, every 4 or 5 years, you should probably replace your hardware. And if they have developed a new software release that does require a hardware upgrade, then yes, we would need to do that. Sometimes it's just a matter of upgrading the memory or the disk space or processor speed.
And once we do that, Kim, we needed to make that a budgetary thing every year so we can have it, based on a 5-year plan, whether it be strategic or whatever, but that's something we need to look at too for moving it forth.
It will be. I'm sorry. Did you?
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things they'd like to do is they would like to have a phased approach. They had it in 4 phases. Their first phase is their financial. Their second phase was their personnel and payroll. And the third phase is their tax billing, and their fourth is utility billing. And so that would be over time. If we get a cost up front, then yes, we can start budgeting. I mean, that would help us in our budgeting.
Commissioner Sweeney.
Thanks, sir. So first of all, cloud storage. I don't have a problem with cloud storage or service in the cloud. So if that's an option, very safe, very secure. The state of Delaware has moved almost all of their storage into the cloud using AWS or whatever happens to be available. If we do have to purchase, it's probably going to be multiple servers, so make sure you consider VMware as the option for housing more than one server on a platform. The annual cost of 167, is there a contract for that out 3 years or longer? Or is that, that's just the first year, so they could come back, and because I see under the Arctic, they projected an annual increase of 2.5%. So does Tyler, can we get a longer contract for that 167 so they can't raise it for at least the first 3 years?
Right. Now, we would want to pay based on implementation, so we wouldn't pay until we're actually using it. And yes, we would probably want a 3 to 5 year cost for the maintenance. And they did not indicate, let's see, Central Square and Tyler for the 2 products did not indicate what that projected annual increase would be. Only Arctic IT did.
Okay. Was Tyler Munis the unanimous choice of the selection committee?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Buxton and Mr. Pettermos, please.
Disrespect, but Mr. Pettit was called first. I don't mind waiting to hear what he has to articulate.
I just didn't want to
Thank you,
another pencil thrown. Okay, Mr. Pettermos.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to, before it got too far away from what you raised about budget, to remind the commissioners that we've been budgeting for enterprise solution for several years now, and we are well positioned to make this move at this time in the budget, in the capital budget. And our future out-year budgets were anticipating these kinds of costs. So we've laid out a plan, and it spans 5 years. Our capital budget. How we have the out years, and at least would cover what we're talking about here for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettermos. Commissioner Buxton.
I just wanted to chime in. I appreciate a couple of the comments that came before me, like the one just mentioned. It's been a long time in the process of getting to this point. I think maybe one of the mistakes we made, not intentionally, might have been MGO and its rollout and the length of time. I'd like to try and avoid that this time around. So while I'm not sure that we need a change order manager, see, I lack the expertise in the conversation we're having, but I do know this. The presentation that I just was shown, that makes sense to me. That's what I've been trying to articulate all along, that we are, we're static and somewhat antiquated. No disrespect, but we see it in some of our presentations. I want to move to something that's modern and somewhat living. It makes sense to me. And when I see that, and I think that resonates across the board with some of the conversations we have. And I like something that has the ability to grow and improve. So I think we're on the doorstep. Mr. Pt.2 said it's clearly funded, and it has been clearly funded. I can remember the night we were here probably in 17 and said, just throw $1 million in there as if that money is play money. So I'll get to the point. I'm not sure change order manager is necessary, but I believe a project manager is. And I would wholeheartedly, with whatever demand I can make, demand that that's included. Because I think that's exceptionally important to take the pressure off of Kim or assist Kim with the pressure, Mr. Pt.2, and any department head who's going through it. And it helps us to stay on track, which was our biggest problem, has been our biggest problem, staying on track. You know, finalizing, getting things done. So I think I did have one question. I don't need the name. How many folks were on the committee?
There were 5 altogether.
Were
2
they
in
all
finance.
county?
Excuse me?
Were they all county employees?
Yes, sir.
All right. All righty. Thank you.
Ms. Masson?
Coming from the corporate world and going from a homegrown system into an SAP system, I can certainly speak volumes to what Commissioner Buxton said about making sure you have a project manager to lead this forth, because that is their responsibility to make sure that you're on track and on budget. And when you don't have that, you end up with what Hercules had, which was a $45 million project that cost $250 when it was done. And when it was done, it was certainly not something that the user wanted, but it's what the company had selected. But you need that project manager to keep it going. And that's something we didn't have, and it was badly needed. So I can certainly support what he's saying wholeheartedly.
Mr. Hall, Commissioner Sweeney?
Yeah, I concur. Definitely need a project manager, somebody working on our side rather than their side. So if they have a change manager, you know, I'm comfortable with that. But I think we need somebody working on our payroll, managing the cost schedule performance.
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. So Kim, can you check with Tyler to see if they offer change management services like Mike Pt.2 suggested?
It was part of their
If
proposal.
it's part of their proposal, then that's probably takes care of that. We get that change manager from Tyler. The project manager definitely from outside, but someone who reports to you as the director of IT. Also, the dashboard reporting, that was one of the options that the Munis product offered. Can that be, we know the dashboard reporting is really important for especially the in-house staff to be able to go look at their budgets, look at, expenses, where we are at any point in time. But we also need some of that information, but maybe not all of it, to be very public. So we want to be able to have that dashboard also viewable by the public as well, to some extent. Thanks.
Commissioner Buxton?
This one, I know that money is an object, right? We get that. But we also understand that let's get it right. There is going to be a cost associated with this, but let's not trip over ourselves. So when we talk about leasing or buying or change manager or not, make sure that the answer is what is the most effective answer to do this right? And not, well, we can save a couple dollars here. I want to save money, and I know you do too, but I don't want to skimp and then not get it right. That's all.
Commissioner Hall?
It's probably a foregone conclusion, but I think something this big, phase 1 and 2 alone are 21 months of implementation, and if we have additional phases, I'm sure those will be tacked on beyond this. So maybe every 6 months, so we don't get to a point where 2 years from now we find, we still have 5 more years to go. You know, it's a big investment with a great outcome, but so we're all aware of where we're at and tracking on the schedule and cost, so there aren't surprises. I think would be a good thing.
Just to be clear, you said something about, I didn't hear the first part, something about 6 months. What did you want in 6 months?
Just sort of a status report.
Status up, okay.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I'd prefer to see a project manager who uses software that we can look at at any time to see where we stand on the project. That should be available.
Anybody else? Kim, I just have a couple. Back when we were doing interviews and investigation on companies, OpenGov and Tyler, I came to you and said about having a project manager too, and because we don't want IT getting deluged with all the extra work, because we still have our regular duties we have to work with. So the price management, that's something new. I think I'll talk to you more about that afterwards, and with Mr. Petamaj and President Pepper, because that's the first time I've heard that one. But at the same time, the one thing that scares the living bejesus out of me is, I know I don't know enough about cloud, but cloud is out there. But what I do know is cybersecurity and hardware. Counties across the United States are getting hit hard, and they're getting through firewalls, and they're getting through. And what guarantee are we going to have this company's going to be able to help us out, that we don't run into that issue?
Well, I don't know if there's any guarantee. I mean, security is kind of like when you leave your house, do you lock your doors and close your windows? And yes, we all do, and we hope we're secure. But that doesn't mean someone still can't break a window and get in. But I will say that these companies, these large companies, cybersecurity is part of what they do. I mean, they probably have a whole group of just cybersecurity, making sure that their firewalls are protected and so on and so forth. So if it's in the cloud, we like to think that it's more secure than possibly here, because they have a whole staff of folks that can do that.
The only reason I'm bringing that up, because I asked that question in NACO at my conference and some of the committees I serve on, and nobody's hit a cloud base yet, security. They haven't been able to get through that, but they're getting through hardware. I just want to make sure everybody knows that, because that's something I think we need to look at too. And I know that CIS security, and I keep bringing this up as NACO initiative. We need to at least have somebody come here and give us a presentation to what they could offer if we go forth. I think that needs to be also part of this program, because that's what scares me.
Yes, MSISAG is probably one of the things that you saw over in NACO, and we do work with them on their products. We get emails from them when they have high alerts. They have training modules that we're looking at that we hopefully can roll out to some of the employees, and they also have a monitoring system that we're hoping to take on. I have a meeting with Mike next week to talk about that. It's called Albert Monitoring Network Systems, and what it does is it basically monitors, they have a list of what they call the bad guys, the IP bad guys, and they monitor our network for activity, people coming into our network, people going out of our network, and they alert us if any of those folks are on their list. So that's something that we're going to be looking forward to, and that is working with MSISAG and security systems.
Okay, well, I just, like I said, this scares the bejesus out of me, so I just feel that if we have a company that's NACO sponsored, that there's no cost up front, and then there's cost for things that you want to add on, yes. But until we do something, I'm not going to let it go, so I just want to make sure everybody knows that. Anybody else? Ms. Petamaj.
I just want to say that, and I'm sure it came through, but Munis system, its very name suggests, it was designed for government applications. Its sole purpose is to service enterprise platform needs of governments like us. And so it wasn't designed for any other really purpose other than the things that government entities engage in. That's why it's got such market saturation, and it's evolved over time. It is a best-in-class product, and so you just need to know that it's not. The scoring bared out what its value is. You had 5 independent people in here who reviewed it, and we all came to the same conclusion that it hit on all cylinders for our needs, and so that's important to us. And it's Kim's point regarding security. These best-in-class companies, they're at it every day, detecting the vulnerabilities and working to address them, putting out alerts to their clients, to, with patches and whatever, devices they can develop to protect the systems that they have deployed. So I think you're getting a best-in-class product all the way around if you go this route. That's my point. And nothing is 100% ironclad. Federal government gets hacked, but it would be a highly reputable product regarding that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Hall?
To that point, and to your point, I was just thinking that the product that they're going to bring in is probably, world-class, and it has tremendous amount of security baked into it. But our legacy systems may have vulnerabilities, and then as we integrate into that, is it worth doing a vulnerability assessment so that one of our old systems isn't providing a backdoor into, because we're wiring together many things here, which is a good thing. It gives us the insights that we want into county operations, but we don't want to do that blindly, create a lot of connections, integrate things, and then, sort of like the Target situation where, they got into their financials through, an unexpected pathway. And I don't think a vulnerability assessment is part of what we're going to be paying for here. So it may be a separate thing that we do down the road.
I agree with what you're saying, but one of the things I learned in Washington, D.C. last month was, even though our counties have insurance, if you don't check with your vulnerability of your system and you get hacked, they don't have to pay. That's what happened to one of the small counties, and they got put on the hook for millions because their insurance did not cover them for what they did. They did not go through fall. And I know we have a system in place, but I hope we do check with our insurance company. I do hope that we follow through and make things the best we can, and that they know what we're trying to do so that they can see we're trying to improve so we don't get hacked. I just want to, since we're talking about security, I just thought I'd add that too. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Kim.
So we have the direction to move forward with Munis.
I couldn't hear you.
Just verifying that we have the direction from Levy Court to move forward with Munis.
Move
and
this
come
forth.
back with some cost.
Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Howell, move the fourth. 6-1.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pettermos, rescue plan. Zero then. No, I didn't see your hand go up. I guess I'll have to throw a pencil like Buxton does to me.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Joe. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Angel. You all received a memo in your packet regarding the ongoing discussions pertaining to ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And last time we met on July 20th, we talked about it in committee, and that discussion centered around development of committees. And there were a few types of committees that were mentioned, and then Linda Parkowski was here. She mentioned there were a couple of outside organizations forming committees, namely the Chamber of Commerce and Kent County Tourism, to provide input with respect to those industries into the process. There was a distinct interest, I heard from Levy Court, to form a public safety committee, possibly a nonprofit committee and an intergovernmental focus group type of a committee. And those were, I think, ideas that spun out of, part of that meeting was requested, what are the other committees doing? And I reported that Sussex County at this time, and I can still confirm that, I talked with President Mike Vincent recently, that they're just taking a wait and hold position until the U.S. Treasury issues its final rule on ARPA. And Newcastle County, because they had already been recipients of CARES Act funding a year ago, they had already formed a committee structure back then, and they were continuing those committees to help them deal with the ARPA funding. And so I think hearing that, there was some discussion, gravitation towards committees. And so in the memo, I did kind of took a rough crack at the composition of the committees that I heard about when we talked on the 20th. And then in leadership, on last time we met, talked about how we could possibly manage these committees and how much work is involved with these committees. And we heard from the county attorney about the need for us, all committees, to adhere to the FOIA requirements for meetings, which means posting and scheduling times 7 days in advance and getting all these various people to meetings is a tremendous undertaking. And so it led me to the conclusion that if we were going to do it that way, that we're going to need to hire somebody, a consultant, to help us with that. And we know clearly now, the guidance bears it out from the U.S. Treasury, that you can use some of the ARPA funding for assistance to help administer it. And so in this memo that you received, there's a draft motion, if we want to go that route, to put out an RFQ, request for qualifications, to solicit for professional services to help with the administration of the program. And that would also, I think, help define, or help Levy Court define, the types of programs and uses you wish to pursue with the money within the framework, if that's the route we want to go. I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Hall's email from last week. I did see it. I was away, but when I got back, regarding keeping things simple. And I concur with that idea, if we can get there, if we can agree, because if there were a few programs that we could mirror or develop ourselves that are simple, or contribute money toward that are being developed at the state level, which I'm not aware of at this point. I did talk with an official from the Delaware State Housing Authority and asked if they were developing any special programs around ARPA, and the answer was they probably, but nothing has been discussed at this point. They're in a transition in secretaries at the Delaware State Housing Authority right now, and so some of that's up in the air. But there may be other programs that come out of the state or other jurisdictions that we could mirror in the future, or we could develop our own. But really, we have to kind of define the types of specific areas we want to try to assist with. And so I think we're at a crossroads. We want to hire a consultant, we can do that, and proceed with the committee format and then develop programs that way, or I maybe stop right here and let the commissioners pick up the discussion. I know there's some thoughts at the table here on how to proceed. So, Commissioner Angel.
Commissioner Sweeney, Howell, and Hall.
Thank you. So, Commissioner Hall, does your suggestion preclude having committees?
Yes, but it didn't preclude having a consultant, because I think even if we were to just come up with a very simplified application procedure, we would still want a consultant to help us develop that and oversee it.
Okay, that's kind of what I got from your email too, and I think that that's probably a good way to go. But if we do go the committees, or the one thing I would add is, under the nonprofit focus group, is to add animal shelters, because all during COVID, they did quite a bit for the community with regards to pet food banks, and so they, and also economic development and the small business is implied under the Central Delaware Chamber of Commerce, right? This economic development, Linda Parkowski and her, they're implied under the external focus groups of CDCC.
Yeah, the external focus groups were those two that were discussed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, Hal?
I'm just curious, who in the world would you find to be a consultant for something like this? I mean, this is totally foreign to us. We've never done anything like it.
Well, you'd be surprised, but I've received a number of unsolicited emails from people out there marketing their wares and to help local governments manage the programs. There are consultants out there that do these kind of project management services. And so the way to find the one that's the best fit is to issue what's called an RFQ, request for qualifications. You kind of develop the types of qualifications that you're looking for, the types of services you need to help manage it. You put it in a document, you advertise, and people submit, and they tell you how they can address your request or your needs. And then you pick the best qualified. And one thing, I'll just put this out there, because I try to put this out there every time I talk about an RFQ. RFQ is not based on lowest price. It's based on qualifications first. Once they meet your qualifications, then you negotiate price. So it's not like you pick the lowest price and that's the one you go with because you get what you pay for sometimes. You base it on qualifications for professional services.
Got it. Now, are you kind of thinking in terms of like a CPA or something like that?
It could involve, obviously will involve some accounting level of analysis or, services. But these consultants will, the types of consultants we'd seek would probably have a range of capabilities. People who've specialize in project management, people with extensive, city management experience, that sort of thing, or managing large dollar programs, that sort of skill set.
What kind of time frame are we talking about?
To get what?
To get this consultant?
Oh, if we go that route, well, when you run an ad, you just typically put it out there for about a month. You give people that.
So as soon as practical.
If y'all give it green light, we have to develop it and then put it out there, advertise it. There's a deadline, then we have a review process. So probably 60 to 70 days, you could probably have something back.
Mr. Pepper?
We did talk about this in leadership, and after seeing the county administrator's frustration trying to develop the basics here, it appears to me that our staffing here in King County is not deep enough to be able to do this. I mean, this is a big project that we need to have people full-time attendance to in order to do it right. And, commissioners here, I'm sure we want to do it right. We want to make sure the right people get it and everything like that. But then again, looking at who's going to do this, and right now is Mike pt.2. And I see what he does on a day-to-day basis, and I just don't know how he'd fit this in. This is something new for us that we don't have in-house expertise on doing this, and a qualified organization that could come in and run this, they would know the rules inside and out. They could guide us. They could guide the whole process, and we could get this thing done, and without overextending our current staff here at King County Levy Court and the county complex, because they're pretty much extended now. And I know the county administrator's duties are extended, so I think this is a good idea, and we should look into it and see where we can go with it.
Commissioner Madison.
I concur with President Pepper's thoughts. That's no point in repeating it, but I think Mr. pt.2 is maxed out on any given day, and to put this kind of burden on him, I think would be very unfair. So I certainly support outside services.
Commissioner Hall.
Just to follow up, I concur. We need a consultant on this, and I think really until one is in place, we should forego any other decisions on forming committees or meeting with committees, because this is completely foreign to us. but hopefully it's not foreign to whoever we bring in, and they just may have some great, right out of the door advice on how to handle this. But when I think of 7 commissioners and a county administrator trying to manage 20 committees and subcommittees, and the word unwieldy comes to mind, and it would just consume the entire fall. And actually, I think by waiting to get the consultant in place, we may still be able to issue funds sooner than trying to get these committees to organize and come up with decisions, and because at the end of the day, we need to issue checks. And given that COVID is just simply not going away, I think that the urgency to get checks out is actually greater now than back when this really started to form up at the beginning of summer. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Buxton.
Nobody listens to me, so it doesn't really matter. See you later. Come on. I obviously will do whatever you guys want. There is merit in hiring somebody to be the point person for the program. I've articulated that back when no one agreed with me, and now we agree. That's cool. I don't know how we've overcooked these committees. My recommendation would be just to request that various groups meet and provide us with some advice. We can exclude the commissioners if that simplifies things. It's done all the time, unless we've now set a new precedent which says that can never happen again, because it happens quite a bit. It is what it is. Why am I speaking on this? I don't know, just to say, I felt like saying it. Clearly, it's not going anywhere. I have a question. If we get rid of the committees, what, we don't need to hire somebody? Right? So what was said was, if we get rid of the committees, if we keep the committees, we need to hire somebody. If we don't have the committees, do we still need to hire somebody? We need to hire somebody. Is that what you said, Mr. Pt.2, at the beginning?
I really want to do what Levy Court wants to do, but I think that given the largesse here and the uncertainty on the direction right now, where we want to go, I think a consultant would help get us to some agreement on areas we want to focus on. They will make sure that we are compliant with the law. That if we say, for example, develop a program like a grant program, they'll set up the reporting requirements and make sure that every step is met. They'll be the screener of those applications and all that sort of thing. So that's the level of service you would be purchasing. And I think right now it would be a challenge for us, just the staff you have, to manage a couple of grant programs. Let's say we did one for businesses and one for households. We would get inundated with applications, and it would become a huge time consumer, and probably maybe frustrating on the applicant's part because they're not getting things processed fast enough.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. Again, I was clarifying what I thought I heard at the beginning of the meeting. I don't get a chance to talk to any of you because nobody makes calls anymore. And I'm venting, right? And I can vent, and if you don't like it, it is what it is. But I don't know what's going on. I know that this is a good idea. It was a good idea 2 months ago. It's a good idea today, right? I want to understand it better. I thought what was said was that the committees are the problem, and if the committees go away, it's no longer a problem. That's not true. Okay, and that's fine. I don't disagree. I think that there should be a point person. So I'm on point with all that, and I'm getting to a better clarification. All right, so we hire the point man. It doesn't forgo our decisions on where the money goes, correct? So if we decide to spend $12 on the senior centers, that'll be our decision to make, right? Or if it's 12 million, doesn't matter. It's our decision to make. It's not we're creating and then they go ahead and approve it, correct? Okay. So we're going to hold off on the committees, is what the talk is tonight. There's no reason to move forward on committees that articulate a conversation. Is that right? Right? Okay. Hey, good talk. Thanks. Good talk.
Anybody else? Mr. Sweeney?
I'm not sure I'm in favor of getting rid of the committees. Wait, only because of what just happened with the police checks. Because we brought that up based on the last 2 times that we distributed checks, voted on it, and they came back the week later and didn't and pulled that. So, I mean, that's, to me, that these committees are not going to be the decision makers, but they're going to advise us, I would hope, on what kind of metrics we can use to create the applications that the project, the lead, whoever that is, would review based on metrics. All senior centers are going to be different. They're going to say, here's how much money we lost, here's how much, all the animal shelters, all the public, they're all going to be different, and somehow provide us metrics for how we can help them going forward. But not say, okay, so we're done with our meeting, you're going to give the senior centers this much money, you're going to give animal shelters this much, you're going to give, I don't see that being the case. So I still see there's some merit to those committees, but I may be out on an island here, Mr. Buxton.
Absolutely not, and I won't support any movement without the committees. And then I'll get outvoted, and then I'll get back in the game, but I will vote to oppose that. If I even have the ability to do that, because I have no idea if that's even in the conversation.
Mr. Pepper?
Wrong, maybe we're not getting rid of committees, I don't know.
I think you're all getting ahead of yourself. We're, at this time, what we're saying is, we're not getting rid of the committees. We're putting them on hold. We're going to look at, see what we can get as far as experts to come in and handle this, and we'll give them this information and say, hey, this is what we were looking to do, and we want you to consider that too. But we're not getting rid of the committees. We're only putting them on hold. Okay. So don't go out and say we're getting rid of committees, because we're not. We're just going to go ahead and find somebody that can run this, do it expeditiously, and, get it done. So we're not running committees, getting in trouble for how we run the committees and things like that. The people that we hire have to know how to do that and keep us out of trouble, and how to develop a means of dispersing this money. But no, at this point, the committees are here. We have to find someone who can get this project done, and if they can come up with a reason why we don't need the committees, then they're going to have to explain that to us. So don't get ahead of yourself.
All right, I'm good with that. I just saw the committees listed under the document that Mr. Pettimon shared with us. Thought they were up for discussion. If they're not, if all we're looking at is for move forward on manager, I'm good with that.
That's where we are.
Anybody else? Mr. Pettimon?
Well, if, when we get back into the business meeting, it's not listed as an action item, I don't believe, under new business on the agenda, but there is a motion here to do the RFI or RFQ. So if we get to that point, if we can, Craig, are we allowed to make this motion tonight?
Yeah, the way this agenda is framed, I would be a little uncomfortable with that. I think it's better deferred until next week, honestly.
Okay, so we can defer till next week if for action?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear our lawyer.
Yeah.
It'll be an action item under new business next week.
Well, one of the things I want to do is, having had discussions with Mr. Pettimon, this is our third discussion about this in the open public. And I thought I was giving information to you all to make decisions. And if it was confusing, I'll take the blame for that. Because one of the things I said when I came back was, we need to look at having somebody take care of this. This is a huge process, and bigger cities are looking at this too. So, for some reason, this got, whatever you want to call it, to committees. And then, of course, when we had our discussion, we can see that committees could delay this. But in saying that, it's been 5 months since we got our first check. And it's April, we got our first 17? Was it May? Oh, May, 4 months. Okay, May, 4 months then. So, and we still don't have a final decision. 3 months, all right, got grief. We still don't have the final decision yet from the Treasury Department. And, you know, I know 2024 is coming around the corner quickly if we don't get started, but we need to do something. And the RFQ, I think, is the best way to do this. And if it so desires, as the President says, let them decide about the committees. That's what they'll be doing anyway, offering advice to us. So, but I just wanted to let you know that I don't want to see us coming back again having the same discussion, other than to say, yeah, the RFQ, we have somebody, we're voting on it, or whatever. Okay? So that's all I want to say. So we'll have this put on the agenda then for next Wednesday, or next Tuesday? Yeah. I'm thinking leadership.
Wednesday. Commissioner Angel, again, my understanding of the committees, it appears to be a little bit different than what the understanding maybe is, or the reality is. Maybe it's a reality. My idea was very informal meetings with folks in that sector. That's it. For them to have discussions and produce thoughts, not produce a product that we can use to make final decisions on. It was literally just, you know, the meeting of the minds to say, look, we've got these funds. What do you see us best doing to help you? Give us some thoughts and ideas. That's really all it was for me. If that, as I articulated, requires a more formal process, okay. I just wasn't prepared for that. I think it takes it to a different level, as is explained. But what we're saying now is that, as I explained it, that requires a much more formal process. Right, Craig? As I explained it, the way I stated it, it still requires a more formal process.
Committee meetings? Yeah, they're subject to FOIA, in my opinion.
Thanks.
Okay. So then, Craig, do we need to have or Mr. Petamaj, do we need to have a motion to move this forth, or a raised hand for your consensus to put it on the agenda, or?
Yeah, just consent to move it to the business meeting next week would be fine.
Okay, consensus to move to next week's agenda. 7 up. Thank you. Any public comments on these 4 items? Any public comments on these 4 items? Anybody online, Mark?
We have one participant online, but I don't see this participant's hands raised to comment.
Last call. Any further comments for public? Seeing none, back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll reconvene the business meeting. There's no old business. New business is a potential action item from the previous committee meeting, which is under Commissioner Buxton, Property Maintenance Code Enforcement for the town of Magnolia.
Move to approve some certain terms that we take over the town of Magnolia. There we go. Okay, I move that Levy Court. I don't want to take over the town of Magnolia. Let me clarify that. No disrespect to everybody. I move that Levy Court accepts responsibility for enforcing the county property maintenance code within the town of Magnolia municipal boundary. The mayor or member of a council shall make a request for individual enforcement services.
Second?
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Buxton, second by Commissioner Masson for the property maintenance code enforcement of the town of Magnolia. Yeah, roll call, please.
Mr. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Buxton,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mrs. Maston,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Pepper,
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. 7 yeas means the motion has been approved. Do we have executive session this evening? Okay. So, Alan, you're going to have a quote from memory for making the executive session for next week.
Move to go into business session meeting, executive, following the meeting, preliminary discussion on site acquisition for public funded capital improvement, legal strategy session regarding collective bargaining or pertaining to potential litigation, personnel matters pursuant to 29 Del Code 10004, B2, 4, and 9.
Need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Angel, second by Commissioner Hall. Unless there's any questions, can we have roll call, please, on that?
Mr. Angel,
Yes.
Mr. Buxton,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mrs. Maston,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Pepper,
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. The motion has been approved. Any informational items?
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I may, just yesterday we got word, actually, Senator's office contacted us and requested that they be permitted to have a press conference at the treatment plant on Friday afternoon at 2:45, and this is related to the infrastructure bill that just passed through the Senate today, and Senator Carper wants to have a press event at the treatment plant, and he's going to also take a brief tour with staff, and would like to invite all the commissioners to attend that can be there. It's at 2:45 out at the plant. We'll have a tent there. They said it'll be brief. They are inviting the press. They did ask for a spokesperson from the county on behalf of Levy Court, and President Pepper is going to be out of town, so Commissioner Angels agreed to address the press questions from county or any commentary, but all commissioners are certainly welcome to join that event. 2:45 Friday. It'll be nice and warm, and you'll see Senator Carper there. So, well.
Thank you. Any other informational items? Seeing none. Any public comments? Any public comments this evening? Okay, Commissioner comments. Mr. Angel.
Yes, I just want to report to you all that a year ago we had our great tornado hit our county, and the people of Morris Lake had a happy party on Saturday that I was invited to, and Mr. Pettermage, who was on vacation, and Mr. Hall. But all I can say is they're still devastated over there. One's not even rebuilding because the cost is astronomically above the insurance, what they'll pay. They are so grateful for the dumpsters that we provided them that they want to come before Levy Court, and they'll give us a notice, and with Kathy Finney, because she was the person that usually took the calls, that when I got there that night, when she spoke, everybody said, "That's the lady we called and talked about the dumpsters." So her voice was very recognizable. So, as well as the commissioners and Kent County and Mr. Pettermage for everything that we did for them, just to let you know that they will be coming forth.
Sounds good. Hey, Commissioner Maston.
Not really a comment, but as a result of our February retreat we had talked about on there the possibility, I guess we voted really, to get a new maintenance building, and I hadn't heard anything and just thought I'd ask for a follow-up.
Yeah, that is on Mr. Vasquez's to-do list to begin to prepare requests for quotes for that, and we may need to, we'll start probably with some construction companies and pole building companies and go from there, but not sure we'll have to hire a designer at this point or not. There are some code issues that may have to come into play that will require construction plans. But it probably depends on who we go with and the type of building we select. But it is being worked on. At least it's on the plate to be worked on.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing too is the cost of building materials is up right now, so it behooves us to hold off a little bit. But yeah, it does need to start to be addressed. Yeah. Commissioner Buxton.